So I know you guys are hoping for just one more video on selections, and I'm here to provide that. One more video on selections. So I am going to talk about the other selection tools that I haven't mentioned yet, but I also am going to talk about some other things like if you have a whole bunch of layers, how can you move those together, or how can you link them, or how you could reduce them, and a little bit of perhaps early troubleshooting. So I want to select the butterflies here. I am going to zoom in. That's something I highly recommend whenever you're working on something kind of small and you're trying to make a selection. And the truth is, the tool that would work very well with this is that object selection tool. I'm just going to make a selection over this blue butterfly, and let's see, give it a second, wait for it, and Photoshop did a really good job. But I am going to deselect that, Control D, and I am going to talk about these three lasso tools because they're here and I just want to point out how they work. They do work a little differently than the other ones. So the first lasso tool just is like a pen. It allows me to sort of draw around. And so I'm just going to make a quick selection and I'm going to draw going around here. And this is why you really want to be zoomed in so you can see what you're doing. And it's not going to be a perfect selection. And then I have to go all the way to the beginning point and let go of my mouse, and that closes it. So the whole time I was doing that, I was holding down on my mouse. And now I'm going to copy and paste that onto a new layer with that keyboard shortcut I've mentioned before, Control J, and that copied and pasted it out. Okay, and I'm actually going to move that butterfly up so that we can see that that's a different butterfly. And now I'm going to talk about the next tool, the polygonal lasso tool. And I'm actually, on purpose, I'm doing this a little bit wrong, so we're going to get an error message that even if you've been working with Photoshop for 20, 30 years, at some point you're going to make this mistake. So keep that in mind, that's where I'm going with this. But I'm also going to show you this tool. So the way this tool works is you click and you let go of your mouse, and I have a line that's following me. And then I would move down my butterfly, and it's going to make this segment here. I click again, let go of my mouse, move over here, click again, and you get the idea. So this is making line segments, and you click and let go of your mouse, and then you just click at the point where you want the line segment to join. So I'm just going to do this. It's kind of frozen there, and not trying to make anything perfect, just going around quickly to show you how this works. And the same thing like the regular lasso tool, I have to go all the way back to my beginning and click pretty close to where this selection originated. And then it will close it out for me, and now I can move my mouse. And I'm going to do that Control J, and this is what I was talking about. I got this little warning message that said could not make a new layer from the selection because the selected area is empty. What are you talking about, Photoshop? It doesn't look like the selected area is empty. It looks like I made my selection on my butterfly. Did I really though? No. If you look over here in the layers panel, the layer I am working on is layer 1. And in that spot in layer 1, because I moved my butterfly out, it's actually transparent. Click OK, turn off the background so you can see. You see, here's my selection. I'm on layer 1, and I was trying to select transparency. Alright, so if you get that message, this is what you do. Just switch over to the layer that that has the content you're trying to copy. And so now I'm on my background, and now I can do Control J, and there's my butterfly, V for the move tool, and I'm going to move that up here. Alright, enough of these blue butterflies. Let's get this red moth. So I'll show you this last tool here, the magnetic lasso tool. Works by, it tries to find the edges of whatever object you're tracing. It's kind of like you trace and it tries to find the edges. So I clicked once, and then I'm holding my mouse down. I'm dragging up here, and I'm going to click again to create an anchor point because I'm making this curve. Click again, come down here. Whenever I feel like it starts to stop making curves and goes more like the polygonal, I click again, and so on and so forth. So this is kind of like a click and drag. I hope you guys are following along. If it's not with my images, with some images, you should just try out all these selection tools. They're all good. You certainly won't use them all in one project, but they're good to know about and have lots of different options. Okay, almost done here. I'm just going to try to go quickly. I don't even care if I get the antennae, and I'm just going back to my beginning and clicking, double clicking on this one, and that closed it out. Now I see that I am on layer 2. I know I'll get that warning message if I try to make my selection, my copy paste. Remember, Control J is just a shortcut for Control C and Control V, copying and pasting. It does it all in one. I'm going to my background and I'll do Control J and move it out. Okay, now I'm going to zoom out a little bit, take my magnifying tool, use the Alt key as my shortcut, and I'm going to make another butterfly, so Control J and move it out. And so now I have this row, and now I'm going to duplicate the moth, so I'll go to layer 2, Control J, move that out, scroll up here. All right, so a couple things I want to point out. If I now want to move any of my different objects that I have on different layers here, I can currently just click and drag any of them, and as I select it, see how the corresponding layer is being selected for me by Photoshop? That is because with my Move tool, I have the option of Auto Select checked in my options bar. So you might want to make sure that you have that. I highly recommend having Auto Select on. If it's not on, I have to first select the layer and then I can move it. So if I want to move this butterfly, I have to find the right layer, which I can do by like the eyeball. Move around till I find that right layer. Where is that layer? This is the layer. Select this layer, then move it out. If I try to just click on something and move it out, it only moves the layer I'm on. Okay, so that auto select option can be very, very useful. All right, now I'm going to kind of align these guys again. So what if I don't want to have to move them all individually? Well, a couple of things I could do. I could, in my layers panel, click on the top layer and go down to the bottom and hold the shift key down. And now they're all temporarily selected, and now I could drag them all around. If I know that I always want to keep it like that, and it's not just a temporary thing, because as soon as I click on my background, they're now individual layers again, I could right-click, and I could choose the option to link layers. And now they're going to be linked. And so now even if I click on my background and then I click on just one of those layers, they're all going to move together. They have been linked. And another option when you're doing your project for this week is if you get to the point where you have just made so many layers, just so many layers, and you can't handle it anymore, I don't want you to reduce all of your layers, but you can certainly reduce some of them by doing this. Again, I'm going to select them, just these, not my background, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose the option to merge layers, and that's going to take all of those layers and make them into one. And now I might choose to duplicate that one again. So I am looking definitely to see layers, but I certainly understand if you get over 100 and it would just be easier to work by making some groups and then maybe you continue to make those groups. And then just as a little bit of a reminder, these things that are on individual layers, if I wanted to scale them, making smaller, not larger, or rotate, that's Edit, Transform, or Control T. And now I could rotate this one around, for example, and then I could click on this one, Control T, you know, do something like that, start moving them, and then their order would, what's on top is going to be affected by how I have them stacked up in the layers panel. All right, so you guys have now learned a lot about selections, but believe it or not, there's still more to learn, although we won't be covering it all this week.